Hello, everyone. Glad to be back again. Sorry I was away so long. I believe it's been about a month. I've been just too busy with life in general, getting a whole lot of spring things done. Animals, boat, planes, relatives, sickness, the list goes on. Anyhow, in this session, we're going to be covering maybe a way to save some cost without having to buy a new transmitter, how to add switches to your transmitter. Also, we're looking at the iNav settings, BLHeli to program how the escape works and makes the motor function, and a couple of interesting initial test flights I had that weren't so successful, but they have good reasons. So let's get right on with it here, and we'll start with how to add switches to your transmitter. If you've all got, or any of you have this great Tyrannus X7 radio, I have a few of them, you might be lacking for switches. Unlike the really expensive radios, this transmitter has 6 switches, 2 on the front right, 1 at the back on the right, 2 on the front left, as you see here, and 1 on the back left. This one right here is a momentary. If you pull on it, it will go back again. It's kind of a momentary thing. It's not really a good switch to use for things like auto launch or whatever you may be needing them for. So, having wanted to use this transmitter with my R9SX long range system, it works very well with it. I decided to add a switch on the radio, and there's 2 ways you can do it. You can add a physical switch, which isn't so easy in this version, the Access version. The ACCST version, there are 2 spare, you might call it, channels for switches that are on the back of the radio that I showed you in a previous video. And I added a switch here on that radio and another one right here. But this one, there doesn't seem to be any way to add other than maybe an extra switch that they have, G. It seems to be within the firmware, but I didn't want to fool around with that. So there's another way to do it, though. Make a long story short, you can use the trim tabs, these guys right here, which you don't use in OpenTX anyway. They are pretty much moot because if you're using iNav or some other kind of flight control system, you don't need to set your trims. The software does the auto trimming for you. So let's take a look at that right now. How to use, let's say we'll use, I don't know, maybe the rudder up and down trim tab, this one right here. Okay, so let's get into that now. To start this exercise, to make a physical switch kind of out of a trim tab, there's 2 steps to it. We're going to do some transmitter work. I usually just do it in OpenTX Companion, the one we covered in a previous video. You might want to plug your transmitter into your laptop right now. Remember, before you plug it into the laptop, you start your transmitter by holding the 2 trim tabs on the horizontal plane. That is the trim tab for rudder and the trim tab for aileron. Pinch them towards the center of the transmitter together and then turn your transmitter on. And you'll get a panel with 3 choices. Don't choose any of them, just plug it into your laptop and it will then connect. Of course, you have to have OpenTX running. It's better to have it running, and then it will show you that it's ready to read your settings from your radio. And you may want to do that now while I'm talking. And don't forget to load your settings from your radio, it's the second icon on the left side of the panel right here. You just click on that guy right there, and it's read models and settings from radio, and you'll get a panel like this showing your different model settings files that you have on your radio. Now, this little exercise, if you were thinking you had to buy a transmitter, you're going to pay $300 plus more for a new transmitter just because you want an extra switch or two. Not really necessary, folks. All you have to do is program these trim tabs, and you can have up to 4 more switches. There are 4 trim tabs on that radio. So I use 3 of them when I fly already. I'm just too much of an El Cheapo to go and pay out $300 more when I've got dozens and dozens of old transmitters kicking around. I've been collecting them for quite a few years. I even have a single channel citizenship, believe it or not, when I started in the radio. Single channel, yep, with a great big old tube in it, about 3 inches high. Anyway, that's another story. So when you get this this going right here, you may want to stop the video and get this panel up. Once you got that going, you can choose the model that you've got set up from a previous radio, or if you haven't, that's not a problem. Maybe a better idea to create a model called practice, or use any model that you're not using currently, and just double click on it. We're going to do a few changes to this which are outside of the scope of probably anything else you've got anyway, so you can always just delete this if you use a model that you didn't want to use it with after. You can just delete these settings we're about to do. Okay, so we get the model editing screen when you double click on the model you've chosen. Then what you want to do is you want to go to flight modes. Now, if you set up your transmitter with OpenTX, your trims will probably look like this. There are 4 of them, one here, one here, one here, and one here. Those are the 4 trims on your transmitter. These should all be set to trim disabled. You don't need them. Won't affect your OpenTX at all. If you are using any of them right now, we're going to use number 2 trim, which is the elevator. If you are running the same mode 2 that I am on my transmitter, my channels 1 and 2 are on the right stick, channels 3 and 4 are on the left stick. We're going to use elevator, which is channel 2. So you want to be sure at least that one is disabled for this exercise. Okay, so that's done on that page. Next one you want to go to is mixes. Now here we're going to set up a mix for the new settings to use that switch that we're going to create. So you want to go to any channel that's not being used. I'll check on my radio, I think it's channel 13 here, yeah. I use channel 13, so I'll use that one just so I can follow along and I don't get lost. You can use any channel that you're not using. This is so that in iNav, you can tell it which channel the signal is coming in from your transmitter in order to effect the function that you're going to do. Now, this function that I use it for is auto launch. I found that all of the OpenTX settings switches were being used on the radio. All 6 switches were being used, and I used the 2 knobs that you turn, the rotary knobs, for other things. I used one for VTX and one for the OSD display. So I didn't have a physical switch to run auto launch, to trigger auto launch, because I don't like to leave auto launch permanently enabled. I don't like that idea. It's just my way of doing things. So I wanted to use a switch for it. So What I used, make a long story short, was channel 13. So the channel you choose, just double click on it. You'll get this panel opening. Now I called this switch launch. You can call it auto L, uh, anything you'd like to. I think you're limited to 6 characters here. So yeah, I can't type any more in. So I use launch. Now the source you're going to use is max. So just scroll down this list until you see max. Where is it? Right here. Well, that I set to max. And the global value variable that we're going to use, I use 7. Now, I think 3 of them are used by OpenTX and iNav right now. I'm not sure. Just use one that's not being used anyway, and you can find out which ones are being used if you go to the special functions in your radio, this one right here. Logical switches may show them too, but I think special functions for sure. If you see global GV7 being used, don't use it. Use another one. I use GV7 just to be sure it's out of the range. It's high enough, in other words, to not collide with something else in there. Okay, so that's it. We're done here. You've got the name, the source, and the global variable that we're going to use. So you can OK that. Then we move over to logical switches. And in this case, what we want to do is use any logical switches that are not being used. Let's say the first, I don't know, 22 are being used in your setup. Then you can pull out 23, use it. Now the logical switch, let me see what I did here. The logical switch that I'm going to use is this guy right here, and it's going to be an A equals X. Okay, you set this function to A equals X, and the global variable that we're going to use is the one we just decided we were going to use. Whichever one you use, I'm using 7, as we saw back in in the Nexus. And the value we're checking for is 0. So we're saying if A equals X, in other words, if G, global variable 7, is equal to 0, then logical switch will be on. It will have bit 1 in it, not 0, so it will be true. Okay, we got that one set up, and let's set up one more. I'm using 24, and that one will say if the value A is greater than X, so if global variable 7 is greater than 0, where is it down here? 7 is greater than 0, then logical switch 24 will be true. Okay, so we're done here. Let's go on to special functions. Now in special functions, we're going to use the logical switches that we just set up. Okay, and there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 of these special functions that we're going to use, okay? Now you can use special function 1 or any special function that's not being used. I will just use 1 right here because I'm using a practice model, nothing being used. So we'll use SF1, special function 1, and that's going to have a switch in it that is checking called L23, logical switch 23 that we created previously. And in that special function, we're going to play the track that tells us that we've switched on auto launch. So we're going to play a track. And that is right down here. Play track. I went by it, I think. Yeah, right there. play track, and you can't choose here. So the track we're going to play from the sounds pack that you may remember we set up in a previous video, it's called IFLNCE. So just type in IFLNCE. That means that it's going to play a track that says auto launch enabled. Okay, so let's put our second special function in, and that one is going to be if logical switch 23 is not true. So that'll be logical switch 23, but we're going to make that let me see, how do you do it here? We have to make it so that it is not true, not logical switch 23. So I need to choose this one, sorry. In your transmitter, it kind of works the other way. And you can do all this stuff, by the way, in your transmitter pages. You'll put in logical switch 23, and then you flip it so that it's the reverse of the truth. Excuse me. It would be, this is called not logical switch 23 with the exclamation mark beside it, before it. So in that one, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be playing the track that says that auto launch is off. So play track. And that one is called IFLNCD, which means that it's off. IFLNCD. Enabled and disabled. The E in this one is for enabled, and the D here is for disabled. And again, these come from your sound pack. Okay, we're going to need another switch, which is for L24. That's the other switch we made. And L24 is right there. And that one is going to say we want to adjust the value of G7. So look for adjust value here. Adjust GV7. And we're going to set it to minus 50. A value of minus 50. Just keep holding that down. Oh, don't go too fast. It speeds up like crazy. There we go. Minus 50. And don't forget to turn this on or it will not happen. Okay, we need one more special function here, and that's the one to tell it that when we click, don't hold the trim tab down like you would when you're setting your trim on an airplane. Just click it up quickly once. Just snap it once up. One up turns it on, and another one up turns it off. It's like an on-off switch. Up turns it on, up again turns it off. Don't try to turn it down. I don't think it works that way. So that will say that we're going to adjust G7, and it's going to be TEU, which is the trim tab for elevator up. Elevator trim up. When you do it in your transmitter, it will say TEU. The switch will be called TEU. And we're going to adjust G7 again. Adjust G7. And this time it will be increment, decrement. And that value out here is going to be 50. And don't forget to turn it on. Okay, so let's check what we've got here. We've got 4 different special functions. We've got 2 play tracks and 2 adjustments. The play tracks, when you click the trim tab up once, it should say the first time, if it's not on already, it'll say launch enabled. And if you click it again, you turn it off, and it will then say, the transmitter will read out launch disabled. Now, right after that, because one of these things happens, we then have to adjust the value of G7 back to its original value so that it's ready for another click of the switch. If it's on, we want to disable it, we turn it off. If it's off, disabled, we want to turn it on. So it's just an on-off kind of thing. Okay, so this one is L23, this one is not L23, this one is L24, this one is TEU, which is trim elevator up or elevator trim up, whichever way you want to say it. And if you're working on these switches and these special functions, be careful when you're in the special functions page, this one, that you don't get the numbers mixed up. It's very easy to get caught up in the whole thing. And you think you're looking at L23, but you're down here at maybe at special function 23. So be careful which one is which. The SF is always the first one, and the logical switch, if there's a switch there and not another command, it'll be in the second position. Okay, so we're done with the setting up on the transmitter. Now, what you do is you simply go over here now to your practice model, and you want to write the save the settings to your radio. So you want to write firmware to radio. You click on this guy right here, and it will write all these settings that you just did to your radio. If you want to keep a backup of it, as we saw in the previous video I made, all you do is you you go to write backup. No, it's not that one either. It's backup radio to file. That's the one we just did. So if you want to write it to the radio, it's write backup to radio. This one right here. Okay? Or you can do a file save as to save it on your hard drive or whatever. Now, once you write that to your radio, pull the cable out of your radio and go down on the menu that's showing to exit, and restart your radio. Shut it off just to be sure. Turn it back on.
Receiver still connected.
And when you shut it off and you turn it back on, you should then hear this when you push once on the elevator up trim.
Launch mode enabled.
Launch mode enabled. If you hit it again, you'll hear this.
Launch mode disabled.
Launch mode disabled. It's a nice Australian voice, I believe. So here we go one more time.
Launch mode enabled.
Launch mode enabled.
Launch mode disabled.
Launch mode disabled. Okay, so the radio work is done. If you have any questions, don't forget to post it below the video. I will respond as quick as I can. Next thing we got to do, and the last thing to get this working, is in iNav, we're going to set the proper mode so that this command will be received from the transmitter and effect the auto launch on or off mode in iNav. So crank up iNav and we'll come right back. And in case anybody's confused from my previous ramblings, you save it back to the radio using this icon. I didn't mean to give you all those options. It's write models and settings back to radio. Okay, so we're done with this. Let's now open up iNav and connect. By the way, there's a new configurator version available. You probably already have it. I haven't done it yet. I have 7.1. I think that's good enough for now. Connect. Now, to finish our job of putting a beautiful new switch on our radio at no cost, go down to the modes page. And if you don't already see down a little further down in your page something called, where is it now? It's here. nav launch. There we go. If you don't see this particular configurator item in modes, uh, you're going to want to go back to the pages I referred to in a previous video where I think GitHub talks about it. Probably they always do. And they tell you what the different numbers are for the different modes, and you can load it in, or just let me know and I can send it to you or something like that, or I'll just clip it maybe at the end of this video in so that you can write that into the CLI, so you'll have this one. But Navlaunch should be there. If you're using this late 7.1 version of iNav, and you're using SpeedyB like I am, or some other fairly popular flight controller, you should see Navlaunch. Now, what you do in this is you have to add the range if it's not already added, and then select channel. Well, I chose 13. If you chose a different channel, like let's say 14 or 10 or 12, that channel must be shown right here. And then uh, with your radio on and you use your new switch, this should happen.
Launch mode enabled.
Uh, this may not happen immediately. This bar could be over here, and when you turn it on like I did, it won't go blue over here, meaning that it's not on. So just simply move that bar so that when it's on, the nav launch icon over here is dark blue. When you turn it off,
launch mode disabled.
It should go over to some place left, or possibly, I've never seen it go to the right, off of the blue bar. That means that nav launch is off. So once again,
launch mode enabled.
On,
launch mode disabled.
Off. Okay, once you do that, save your settings, and that's it. So you should have a new switch on your transmitter. And by the way, you can set up as many as 4 of these. You have 4 trim tabs. So all you would change is for each of the different switches, you could use a different GV value. You could use global variable 7, 8, 9, 6, or if you get really adept at this, like I have at one point, I have lots of global variables available, so I tend to use one global variable for each switch. But you could actually use one global variable for multiple switches by having different uh, ranges of values for each switch. So the first switch might have the global variable operating on, let's say, 1 to 50. And the second switch might be using values 51 to 100, etc. It gets rather intricate that way, and a little bit harder to figure out. But once you look at the one we just set up and you see how this works, uh, I'm sure you will dream up other uses for your own purpose that come in very handy and can save, excuse me, a lot of money in just going out and purchasing another darn transmitter. Okay, if there's any questions, again, just put them in at the bottom of the video and I will respond. Next, we're going to have a look at all of the different iNav settings that I have set for the Dolphin, and we'll do that right now. On a previous video, I showed you how I was getting telemetry from the escape, such as RPM. I'm using a BLHeli escape with an F90 motor. If you have an escape that's BLHeli compatible and you can change different values, as we're going to see later on in this video. But right now I'm talking about getting the telemetry that I showed you with a wire going to the crossfire, the 4 pins that are set out on the SpeeDB flight controller for crossfire. I'm using the RX pin on that to grab the RPM to display on my OSD. And how I do that in iNav is, if you go to ports, I have set UART1, which relates to the 4 pins for the I can never remember the name of that thing. It's a different receiver, um, and I'm telling it that the peripherals that I'm using are the escape output telemetry, and I'm sending that through UART1. Now, I found that in order to get that to work, I had to, in configuration, enable the CPU-based serial ports. So this was off, I enabled that, and then I magically got the RPM to show, and I could post that on my OSD screen. Okay, the other thing in ports that you might have noticed here is I have IRC Tramp on UART 5, which is the UART that relates to the VTX. So I can control the VTX output power by using IRC Tramp. Okay, so if you want to take a look at the different settings I have, if you care, I'll just scroll through these right now. These PIDs, I haven't had a chance yet to do the tuning using auto tune by flying the plane in different levels in different states. So they may or may not be useful. Just ignore the programming. These are just things that I've been trying. The only ones that really count here are the ones I'm using for the VTX power level. And I'll go through these one more time by unhiding the unused modes. And by the way, in the nav waypoint, I do use this in another aircraft I had. I just added the range and I set the values, etc. um, I do use, for that, I use another trim tab switch. I use the rudder, I believe, rudder. Yes, I use the rudder tab on that one. And I made a mistake earlier. I was telling you that the rudder stick was on the right side. It's actually on the left side with the mode I'm using, mode 2. The right side has aileron, not rudder, aileron and elevator. Let's take a look at BF-heli now. Sorry, BL-heli 32. If you're running, as I said earlier, an escape that is BL-heli 32 compatible, very good product to be able to tune your escape and to control the different features your escape may or may not have. So the reason I've got the iNav panel up is you have to disconnect from your flight controller to be able to run BL-heli, because otherwise there'll be a contest with BL-heli and iNav to connect to the flight controller into the escape. And you should also have your aircraft, or at least your flight controller, powered with a battery for BL-heli to communicate. So after you've installed BLHeli-32, I think I covered that in the previous video. If I didn't, please remind me in a note, and I will definitely make a video on how to install it if you need. So I have it installed here. I'll just fire it up here, and you get a panel that looks like this. I'll make this a little larger so that I've got two of them right here. I'll make it a little larger so that there's no interference going on here in the background. I guess that's as large as it gets. Okay. Well, I'll shut this one down. So what we have here is a panel for BLHeli, and you can connect. You should be able to connect to your flight controller through this connection, and you see it's reading it right now. Now, uh, once you're connected, you can read the setup, and it'll say escape number one setup read successfully. Uh, I had some problems before where it wouldn't connect, and I can help anyone that has trouble like that too. So just let me know, like I said in the comments below, and we'll address that. Now you can see the settings I've got. I've got the motor direction reversed because I had a different prop on the motor. You can make the motor either normal or reversed. You can set maximum throttle. You can have a startup beep volume if you want. You can have a music note to sing a music thing when it starts up, and this is the one that I got here. I copied that somewhere off the network. I don't have the patience, I don't think, or the time right now to go about coding something like this, but it's quite a neat little music tune it plays. The other things I use on here are I have auto telemetry on. I'm not too sure if it does any good or not, but I just turned it on. It won't hurt. You can set your max throttle, your minimum throttle. I have the brake off, but you can set the brake to different percentages so that the prop doesn't keep turning as fast or it doesn't keep turning at all when you land. Because if your prop is windmilling in the wind and you land on the grass, especially with a dolphin, the prop is sticking out the back like happened to me. I broke a prop, you'll see in my second test flight. It's better to have the prop stopped because there's less chance of it striking something as it's landing on the grass and breaking. Um, I have the low voltage protection set to 3. I think that's a default. No, the default is off. I set it to 3. Um, Different stuff like that. You can use the S-Bus channel on that escape I have if you want to. I don't use it. I don't need to. Now, the thing you can do here is without starting up your radio and turning the model on and all that, but you have to have the escape obviously powered. You can go to motors right here, and it'll say found active interface connection. You want to close. Okay, you close the current connection, which is the setup, and it'll open the connection to test the motor. Now be sure your prop is off, or if you've got the prop on, be very careful. If you want to be brave, okay, but I have mine off right now. Just click on I understand the risks, and then you can move this up to test your motor. And I don't have the motor on right now, but right now if I had it on, you would hear the motor going up and down. And you'll see why I have no motor on in the next part of this video in my second test flight, by the way. But anyway, that's the different things about BLHeli, the setup and all that good stuff. And you can read more about it. There is a um, lots of documentation that goes with this, by the way, and I thought you could access it here somewhere. Let me see. I think you could click on it. But anyway, if you go into the BLHeli site there, and if you're using BLHeli 32, here it is right here, I think. BLHeli info. You click on that and you get the operation manual. And this has got a plethora of information in it. So read through that. And it's great to have it electronic because now if you want to find out anything to do with, let's say, the motor, you can just do a search with your system, let's say on motor, and you'll see all of there's 59 places where they talk about motor. And here they talk about dampening, using braking to retard the motor from maybe breaking the prop off if it's still spinning, etc., etc. So anyway, that's the documentation there. And don't forget when you're done, if you change any of these settings, to just, after you read the setup, of course, and you do a change, don't forget to write the setup back. So if you do any changes, just click this, write it back, etc. Okay, so I'm not getting any nice tunes out of mine because of, like I said, my motor is not connected. So that's BLHeli. So next, we'll take a look at my failed first 2 attempts at a test flight. Kind of funny to watch. To me, it's funny. Maybe you won't find it funny. I think it's hilarious because I'm an old school flyer. I started. I'm 78 years old now, by the way, and I started modeling when I was around 5.5, breaking my mom's Christmas trees with Gwillows or Gullows, however you say that, 25-cent kits from Stedman's. I used to build them and then fly them into the Christmas tree because the Christmas tree was a great thing to hit. It wouldn't break the model. I didn't care about a couple of bulbs, etc. I was too young to care, but that's another whole story as well. Okay, so I'll go over there now and we'll have a look at those test flights. So this is the first test flight, folks. That's where I had done some changes and I put a new motor on because the original motor with the Adam RC Dolphin, like I've seen so many others go through, burned uh, before even a test flight. Just testing it in the model, it smoked out and burned. Anyway, it was gone. Now, having said that, there are people, I think, who have used the original motor provided with the model and had no problems. Now, how long they lasted, I don't know. I haven't seen any results on that too much, but let's have a look at my first test flight just to see what happened here. And as you can see, launched pretty good, but it took a dive, probably due to the motor was pointing slightly upwards at the back of the model, and I suspected that would push the nose upward too much. And I guess the flight controller said, "Wait a second, you're going up a little too much here. We're going to give some down to correct." And it went down all right. It went right down, and it caught the ground and rolled over. Now, take that again. There you go. So I didn't suffer a lot of damage. I was pretty lucky, and I'll show you what happened right here. Where have I got that? Oh yeah, in here. No, it's not there. Where is that? Just a second, folks. I believe it's in here. No. I seem to have lost my picture. Oh, here we go. So anyway, I got a motor removal immediately from the back of the airplane. Didn't break the motor. Didn't break the prop. Incredibly. But anyway, that happened. And also, I had a little bit of a crack on the left wingtip right there that I fixed. So, hey, got off lucky, right? Not too much damage, very minimal, was very lucky. So I put the motor back on with a very strong motor mount, something it couldn't pull out as easily this time, and went back at it. And that thing is, that second test flight is right here, I believe. Yeah. Let's have a look at this. Now, that's a little bit more encouraging, isn't it? But not quite enough to have a beer yet. So let's have a look at that again. The launch was pretty darn good as far as I'm concerned. The right leg might have needed repair after, but anyway, it was at the right angle, and good old iNav said, yeah, you're going up a bit, I'll correct, and it was coming up. Now here's the thing, in the heat of the moment, being a slow model flyer, not one of these screamers, I'm going to get used to it though, believe me, if it takes me until the age of 90, I may have hit the right stick, disabling auto launch. I don't know, I'm not sure, but it went up and then it turned left, hard left. Doesn't seem to me like a old flyer kind of reaction, but maybe I might have hit the stick, but I don't think so. And down she went, and it did kind of a nose flip, but that was a little bit more damage. The motor took a whack; it no longer works. The prop broke. I wasn't too delighted to see the motor kick the bucket because it was a really expensive T motor F90. I've ordered another one just in case I had not cut the throttle as I had hoped to. I think it was still running when it hit the ground. That's probably what caused the burnout. But the escape, the escape didn't suffer. Escape is like new. I've tested it out since, and I'm ready to move on. Um, so that's the end of my testing. I haven't had the time to go at it, and I'm waiting for the new motor. Besides that, I want to get the T motor. I want to do a test with another T motor to be sure that it's not the motor that just burned out and that it's. Now, here's the thing. I've used auto launch both times. I was tempted both times. Being an old modeler, I've tested many models just by hurling them in the air and controlling them. They went a little slower, believe me, than this screamer, but I think I will do auto launch one more time just to prove and to get it right that this thing will fly. I know it will. If I do everything right, it's probably all been my fault. But I'm looking forward to putting out another video in the next week or two, as soon as I get the new T motor. And I will post that. And hopefully we'll have some video up a little closer to the clouds than, let's say, what was it I got there? Maybe 15 feet of altitude? I think it's hilarious to watch it. An old guy like me run this plane into the air and it says, F you, I'm going down. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you all soon. Fly them like you don't own them. Talk to you later.